The foodies in my audience should check this out. Our sponsor, Cook Unity, is a unique service that connects you with some of the best chefs in the country. Cook Unity is a collective of award-winning chefs who handcraft spectacular dishes in their local micro kitchens to arrive at your doorstep every week, always fresh and never frozen. They have hundreds of dishes to choose from, no cooking required. You heat it up and it is ready to eat. Go to cookunity.com/Pacman and use the code Pacman before checkout for 50% off your first week. Welcome, everybody. Hope you had a good weekend, a good Father's Day to those who celebrated. We have a major change to the top 2024 election forecast. It's the 538 election forecast, and we're going to look at it in a moment. And while the change we have is major, we also are very quickly going to learn that you and I are not going to be doing this every single day from now until November, because the changes, while monumental, also are of very limited predictive value. So the news is that after last week, 538 launched their first 2024 presidential projection forecast for this election, and it had Joe Biden winning by something like a 52 to 48. Out of 100 simulations, Biden wins 52. We now have a reversal in which, as of last night, it was Trump 51, Biden 49, and it is now Trump 50, Biden 49. Now, before we go further, you might say, hold on, that doesn't add up to 100. Does that mean that there might be some third party winner? Does a third party candidate have a shot at getting to 270 electoral votes? And the answer is, of course, no. There is a roughly 1 in 100 chance. It's actually, they say it's less than 1 in 100 that nobody gets to 270. There are a couple of scenarios you can look at that are 269 to 269. It's not very likely. All four of those scenarios together represent less than 1% of the totality of possible outcomes. So what are the takeaways here? The main takeaway, the primary takeaway is, David, we're going to pat you on the back, buddy, and give you an attaboy. You've been saying, I'm now doing third person. I've been saying for months, this is going to be very close, no matter what you think about Latino voters in Florida, no matter what you think about anti-Biden Democrats in Michigan, where, as we know, there were famously massive dumps in 2020. No matter what you think about any particular indicator, factor, poll, or hypothesis, this will almost certainly be an election decided by, I'll let you fill in the blank. I know you all know it. An election decided by fewer than 500,000 votes in somewhere between 3 and 5 states. Now, we're going to look at some of this projection a little bit more, but the most important takeaway here, if you care about the future of the country, and there are people who don't, is that we have to get out there and we have to vote. Now, as we go down and look at some of the other details, and again, we're not going to do this daily, because my expectation, I would be shocked if we get in this projection, unless something unprecedented happened, if Trump does a soil and run during next week's presidential debate, we may see these numbers change dramatically. If one of the Joe Biden wanders off videos is genuinely a video of Biden wandering off rather than right-wing disinformation, which we will talk about, maybe you would see this get further off than something like 52-48. But I don't think we're going to see this get to 60-40 unless there is some kind of historic implosion by Trump or Biden. Trump leaves the country on his jet to avoid prison. Right. I mean, something really crazy. I believe that we are going to be in this range, probably no wider than a 55 to 45 prediction on 538's forecast for the next several months. Now, you look down at this and you can find all sorts of different interesting things. You see that just a few days ago, the blue line was above the red line, meaning Biden was expected to win. Now it's Trump, but it's all very, very, very tight. For me, the most interesting aspect of this are what are the states most likely to be potential tipping point states. And it's actually a bigger list than we had last week. So if you want to say to me, okay, David, little tiny changes to the predictions, but what is really substantively changing? There is something interesting here. which is that North Carolina and Florida and Texas have been added as potential tipping point states. The concept of a tipping point state is that it is a state likely to determine who gets to 270 by itself. Now, I know that you're going to look at this and you're going to say, David, sir, if you're that respectful, that is, of me, you'll say, David, sir, I don't really know how Texas could be a tipping point state. Let me explain it. Because we have some of these states that are super, super close, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, states that went to Biden last time, there are scenarios where Biden could lose some of those historically purple states. And Texas, because it's closer than some red states and so many electoral votes, you can have a scenario where Trump takes some of those smaller purple states from Biden. And then if Biden can get Texas, he wins. Now, I know that many of you who have been following American politics for a while will say, David, that's a nice little scenario you've drawn up. But we know that while the 50 states are independent elections, statistically, they are not completely independent in the sense that if Trump gets Arizona, Wisconsin, and Michigan, the whole election is probably going toward him, and he would almost certainly also get Texas. And to that analysis, I would say, congratulations, you're absolutely right. But this is a mathematical analysis. And now the states that are the likeliest single states, if it comes to one state to decide this election, are Arizona, Texas, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Does this mean your vote doesn't matter if you live in Utah or California? Unfortunately, in a sense, that's exactly what it matters. Now, if everybody stays home, all of a sudden the votes matter way more. But the margin in Utah for Trump and the margin in California for Biden is expected to be so significant that the odds of those being decider states extremely, extremely low. So that's where we are right now. I'm not going to update this daily. I expect that it is going to sort of swing 1 point, 2 points plus minus as things go. The big thing would be if something unprecedented happens. But if that happens, to give my example, if Trump does a soil and run during the debate, and it's global headlines, it's going to be so obvious that that is an election-changing event that we're not going to need to look at the 538 forecast to tell us that, although certainly it will reflect it. So that's that. Let's now talk about the viral Biden wanders off disinformation element that went completely crazy over the weekend before it was debunked by some simple videos. All right. So many of you wrote to me and said, David, there's a new Biden video. He's completely confused. He's disoriented. He's smiling off into the middle distance, and it doesn't look like he has the slightest idea what's going on. They've got to bring him back and change his diaper and give him a sippy cup because he doesn't know. Okay, so there is a video, a very suspiciously cropped video that was circulated by the New York Post and other right-wing media outlets, which appears to show Biden paying attention to nothing and sort of wandering away. It made global headlines. I saw the usual suspects in Argentina, tabloid journalism, signal boosting this video. Now I'm going to play the video for you. One of the things I will call attention to if you're watching it is that even for vertical video, this video is cropped to be insanely narrow. What I mean by that is many of you are, I'll hold up my phone as an example. Many of you are familiar with landscape videos where it's horizontal, and then vertical video where the video is vertical. On YouTube, regular videos, it's horizontal. YouTube shorts are vertical. TikTok is vertical. Okay. This video that was published is a vertical video, but about, I would say 25% of the image on the left and 25% of the image on the right is cropped. So we're getting, it's not even half of the original width of the video. It's probably a third because it's vertical and it's even further cropped. I'm going to play it and you see Biden looking off at something and smiling. You can't tell what he's doing. Let's take a look. And the headline says Biden appears to wander off at G7 summit. and has to be pulled back to a group of world leaders. And you see Biden, he's walking off, and the way it's cropped, it looks like he's talking to no one, and it looks confused. And then he's tapped and told, hey, we're going to be doing a picture over here. Okay, so this was the proof that Biden didn't know what was going on and he wandered off. Now, of course, subsequently, the full video was released, not cropped in this dishonest way. And what you will see when you see the full width of the video is Biden clearly talking to a group of people who just landed from skydiving, and he's saying things to them and engaging in a conversation. So now we have the other video. Again, it was cropped before, but now we see the full thing. Biden starts to walk over. You will see the camera zoom out and pan, and you will see that there are people sitting there, and Biden is talking to them as they land. And then very quickly, because in one version of the video it was also slowed down, someone comes up to Biden and says, hey, we're going to take a picture over here. It's really not very notable. If this is what, listen, just wait till you see the cognitive beauties that Trump engaged in over the weekend. If this is what you're hanging your hat on, only by cropping the video to a third of its original width can you even, and slowing it down in some instances, can you plausibly make this seem like Biden doesn't know what's going on? So the right has now, you could say, cleverly attacked Biden with videos of him petting dogs. And I remember it was like, look, Biden's petting a dog. He looks disoriented. Eating ice cream. That was a good one. Waiting for Jill Biden to get into a car before boarding himself. That one was publicized as Biden froze getting into his car. He was waiting for his wife to get in. And then now apparently being curious about skydiving, which, as we know, one of the first things to go when the mind goes is you just become obsessed with skydiving and talking to skydivers and this sort of thing. So I would encourage them in a sense. And listen, these are only resonating with people who have already bought into this story. And so to the extent that they want to continue being debunked and publishing this stuff, go ahead. It's the New York Post, it's other right-wing media. And meanwhile, you will later see that over the weekend, failed former President Donald Trump, convicted felon, civilly liable rapist Donald Trump, demanded Biden take a cognitive test while forgetting the name of the doctor that supposedly gave Trump a cognitive test. Totally blanked on the name, then subsequently glitched, twitched, and pointed to Mike Pillow in the audience. And they're like, look at this vertically cropped video of Biden. I don't think any swayable voters are being convinced by this. I want to hear from you at info@davidpakman.com. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll be back after this, and the show will continue. One of our sponsors today is Cook Unity, the first chef-to-you service delivering locally sourced meals from award-winning chefs right to your door every week, and it's cheaper than other meal delivery options. With Cook Unity, there is no cooking required for a chef-quality dining experience right at home. Unlike other meal services, Cook Unity is a chef collective made up of some of the best chefs in the country, bringing creative, delicious meals right to your door. Every meal handcrafted by chefs in local micro kitchens, not these massive production facilities. I recently had the caramelized mushroom quesadilla. Delicious, and the food arrives fresh, never frozen, in packaging that keeps meals fresh in the fridge up to 7 days. All of the Cook Unity packaging is compostable, recyclable, or reusable. You can pick as few as 4 or as many as 16 meals a week. There are hundreds of dishes to choose from, and the menu is constantly updated. They have 7 different dietary preferences you can pick from, including vegan, pescatarian, gluten-free, and others. Go to cookunity.com/Pakman. Use the code Pakman before checkout for 50% off your first week. The link is down below. The David Pakman Show, now more than ever, depends directly on the support of our viewers and our listeners. If you are currently a member, understand that you are making the show free for everyone, the 99.5% of the audience that does not support us directly. The whole point of the show is to distribute it as widely as possible I talked last week about some of the changes we're making, whereby reducing our distribution on radio and TV will actually help us to expand distribution even further by allowing us more time and resources to focus on the online spaces where we are getting disproportionately more audience. And all of it is funded and made possible by members like you. You can sign up at joinpakman.com. The membership program comes with great perks, including an extra show every single day called The Bonus Show, and so much more, including access to a commercial-free version of the show hours before it is made available to everybody else, all for supporting the work that we do. You can sign up at joinpakman.com. The beautiful new website is now live and working perfectly, I might add. And you can use the coupon code if you'd like a discount off of the cost of your membership. You can use the code SaveDemocracy24 at joinpakman.com. Kyle Clark is back. You might remember Kyle Clark as the guy who moderated that Colorado debate in which Lauren Boebert imploded. He did an amazing thing. Kyle Clark interviewed congressional candidate from Colorado, Richard Holtorf. And Richard Holtorf, not exactly sure the right pronunciation, Holtorf is pro-life. I'm pro-life. He's against abortion, except when it's his girlfriend. Well, okay, now we're talking. Kyle Clark confronts him during this interview, and this is really, really well done. And this leads to a broader concept we've been talking about. Our principles are steadfast, except when they're inconvenient to us. Listen to how well done this is.
If abortion was the best choice for your girlfriend, why try to deny that choice to other women?
So let me give you some context about that situation, because I'm a pro-life Catholic, and I believe everyone should choose life. Now, if you listen to my presentation on the House floor, did you listen to it?
I did, in fact. I just quoted from it.
Okay, so what was the major theme, and what did I had to repeat?
He's quizzing the interviewer now.
Probably 20 times.
In
Hold on, let me help you.
Oh, I thought you were asking me a question.
No, go ahead.
In fairness, your logic was a bit scattered in that speech. What I'm asking you about is the fact that you said that you respected your girlfriend's right to an abortion and then gave her money to help her through an important time to live her best life.
You did exactly what I did.
I'm very strongly against abortion, and I pay for my girlfriend's abortions when they are convenient to me.
But yet you've tried to deny that to other women. And I'm asking, why is an abortion good for your girlfriend, bad for other women? That's my question. Simple question.
Okay, she had an abortion. Was that her choice? Yes. Did she have that right? Yes. Was it my choice, Kyle? No.
Why do you seek to deny the choice that you said was best for your girlfriend's life?
Let me finish explaining.
Why do you seek to deny it to other women?
I don't.
You have voted to restrict abortion access as well.
And I have. And I'm a pro-life person. I think you should try to choose life every time. But there are exceptions. And there are times when you need abortion. Abortion is a medical procedure.
Is one of the exceptions when Richard Holtorf's the father?
No, it is not. It's not about me. Don't personalize it and make it about me. It's not.
It's all about him. That's the problem.
Told the story on the House floor.
That doesn't matter.
Okay.
That doesn't matter. Okay. That's a story.
Okay.
That's not that important. What's more important,
of course,
is the policy.
Yeah, okay. What's more important is the policy. This is putting in stark relief. You can really feel the texture of the hypocrisy here. But I have to tell you, it's not particularly unique. Why can't Kyle Clark understand? Holtorf is against abortion, except when he's not. There are exceptions. And although he wants there not to be abortion, he also wants there to be abortion when it's something that he decides makes sense. Now, what are the exceptions? Most of these Republicans like to say, well, it's cases of rape, incest, or life of the mother. Were those exceptions at play in the individual story that he previously told? Not as far as he told us, but it's still an exception because it's different, because it's him, and there's something about it. Now, this is really, really common. You don't always get these guys on their personal hypocrisy. For example, there are, I'm going to concede it's conjecture. There are people who go around suggesting Trump probably has paid for someone's abortion. We don't have proof of it. I've never made that allegation, but sometimes you will hear people say Trump's probably paid for someone's abortion. We don't need that in order to recognize that Trump's story about now being against abortion, when he turned 68, he learned about a kid he liked and became against abortion. It's a lie. It's simply to get elected. And the truth is this way with so many of these elected officials. I'll say guys, because often this applies to the male elected officials. Until they are affected, they don't really care. And then when they are affected, sometimes they'll publicly change their position, but sometimes they'll just want an exception for themselves. We've seen this with the homophobic elected officials. Gay marriage is bad, and gay people in the military is bad. Everything's just terrible until their nephew or their son or their daughter or someone they know is part of the LGBT community. And then they go, well, that's different. I mean, listen, no. Sometimes they'll actually be upfront and say, I changed my mind. I needed that personal experience and I changed my mind. While I think it's a tragedy that only when they are in a position personally do they change their mind. It would be great. I've never been in a situation where I was discriminated against as an LGBT person because I'm not LGBT. I was never in a situation of an abortion of any kind, but I don't need to be to know what I think the laws should be for other people. For some of these Republicans, it seems they only get it when they are personally affected. That's a shame, but at least when they're up front and they go, hey, you know what? It changed my view. The personal opinion changed my view. I respect that more than this nonsense from Richard Holtorf, where he goes, no, listen, those remain my principles and abortion's bad. But there's some exceptions. And all right, listen, I mean, I'm very pro-life, always choose life. But I paid for an abortion for my girlfriend. Wasn't a question of life of the mother. Wasn't a question of any of those things. No rape, no incest. But, it's just, I'm not going to change my view, but that's what I did. Those are the more hardcore hypocrites. They're all pathetic. Don't get me wrong. And Kyle Clark doing a really good job. And this is why at the end of the day, I have a chapter in my forthcoming book called Principles Over Policy. And the argument I make in the book is that we on the left should understand the values that inform our principles and what our principles are. I want the lowest tax rate possible that properly funds what I believe are societal responsibilities that should be handled through government. That's my principle. Good. Okay. I mean, we should understand that principle. But the reason that I suggest not getting caught in the black hole of principles with these Republicans is they don't even really abide by their principles. They use their principles to get votes and to find voters, like Trump saying, now I'm against abortion when he decided to run for president or whatever else. But their principles are completely BS, for lack of a better term, and malleable depending on what it is that is convenient to them politically or what is convenient to them personally. So I will lay this out in greater detail when I have, this full chapter in my book. But the point is, we should be connected to our principles, but try to debate policy with these right-wingers rather than principle, because their principles go out the window as soon as they are inconvenient. I have genuinely great news for you today. This started early last week, and it has doubled, and it has doubled again, and it is growing. The story of Donald Trump's brain is going completely and totally mainstream. I want to remind you, this started last week. We started talking about it with this PBS NewsHour clip where both the PBS anchor and the NPR reporter talked about Trump's complete and total incoherence at recent rallies. And this was a sign the story might be going mainstream.
For all his calls for President Biden to undergo some kind of cognitive test, it's clear to say Mr. Trump's remarks are not at all coherent in these rallies.
Mr. Trump's remarks have never been super coherent in his rallies. I'm not sure that I can weigh in on how much they have veered in the last couple of months, but this split screen has always been there, will always be there. They are different people.
All right, so that's starting on PBS and with an NPR reporter. We then talked about this great op-ed in the Washington Post by Eugene Robinson. Is Donald Trump okay? Was the question that it asked. And it got right to the complete and total incoherence of Trump at the rallies, including his shark electrocution rant. Over the weekend, a number of additional stories in corporate media have come forward about this, and it is a great, great thing. Alex Wagner on MSNBC did a segment, Trump Cognitive Decline, Increasingly Difficult to Conceal Despite Setting a Low Bar. MSNBC is now talking about the Trump cognitive decline story. We have a new article from AFP on Yahoo News by Camille Kemdesis, who wrote, at 78, Trump too is showing signs of aging. And this article goes on to talk about how despite all of the direct attacks on Biden's brain from MAGA types, there is something going on with Donald Trump and cognition. And it is a Yahoo News article from AFP. Again, very much front and center here as far as this goes. This is a really great thing, and we need to push on this. Now, I have an all of the above approach. As many of you know, I don't think there's any silver bullet or any one story that is going to win this election for the side of logic and reason. On the one hand, we need on-the-ground campaigns in the most important swing states. Unfortunately, Joe Biden is opening offices while Trump is closing them. That's a great thing. On the other hand, debates will play some role, at least potentially, and if you mess up, you'll really hurt yourself in a debate. So it would be a great thing for Biden to be well prepared, and we've got to focus on debates. But the story of Trump's brain is an important one to get out there because we actually have the facts on our side. And every single one of these stories, the hyper narrowly cropped video of Biden speaking to skydivers or paratroopers, I don't know what the right word is, that we talked about earlier, it's nonsense. As soon as you see the wide video, it's debunked. There is no debunking of the things that Donald Trump says when he says, and Saudi Arabia, and then just moves on because his brain just can't do it, and it's mayonnaise or it's a mustard vinaigrette, or we don't know what it is that's up there. It's a real story, and it simply is not getting to so many people. There are lots of people who, if they saw the Trump videos, would go, that is some really weird stuff. We have video from Trump rallies where MAGA people that stood in line in the sun for hours to hear Trump, with no sunscreen in many cases, using the disgusting porta potties and having the disgusting food, they have expressions on their faces when Trump starts glitching where they go, what the hell is going on here? So the point here is this has now broken through. We've been covering it with mental health experts and neurology experts for several years. It's breaking through. MSNBC, Washington Post, PBS, NPR, etc. Let's keep going, and we'll take it as one additional tool with regard to the 2024 election. If Trump ends up in prison, which I don't think he will, and that dissuades people from voting for him, great. I don't care what the path, if it's talking about Project 2025 and telling people the reality of the horror of Project 2025, fine. But the Trump brain story should go mainstream. It's starting to, and that's a really great thing. Don't forget that the best way to support the David Pakman Show is by becoming a member, which gives you access to the daily bonus show, the regular show with no commercials. You also get access to our entire archive of every episode dating back a really long time, and plenty of other awesome membership perks. Go to joinpakman.com, joinpakman.com. A bunch of CEOs friendly to Donald Trump met with him last week, and they were stunned at how little sense Trump made, how Trump couldn't stick to one topic. It's just random statements and sentence fragments coming out of his mouth. And it is the next layer in Trump's brain going mainstream. Andrew Ross Sorkin on CNBC spoke to some of these CEOs, and they said, listen, we're sort of like on the Trump train, you know, but something's wrong with this guy. Listen to this and take a think. Afterwards, I want to give you my thoughts about it.
I will say I was surprised. I spoke to a number of CEOs who I would say walked into the meeting being Trump supporter-ish or thinking that they might be leaning that direction, who said that he was remarkably meandering, could not keep a straight thought, was all over the map, and that they, which maybe not surprising, but was interesting to me because these were people who I think might have been actually predisposed to him and actually walked out of the room less predisposed to him. Actually,
I'm sure Andrew Ross Sorkin must just have Trump derangement syndrome or something, right? This is a critical little detail. There are two themes here. The people who spend time around Trump end up blowing the whistle and going, what the hell is wrong with this guy? Something is not making any sense. These are Trump-friendly CEOs invited to a roundtable meeting with Trump. They're like, yeah, we're kind of on board with the whole thing. And then Trump's in there saying his sentence fragments, one thing and then another thing, and not completing a thought and telling wild stories, I'm sure. And they come out of it and they go, I was surprised by the way he was behaving. It just didn't really make any sense. Despite all of the people who don't ever interact with Joe Biden making claims about Biden, nobody who actually spends time with Biden comes out and makes similar statements. Now, I know that you might say, well, in that Wall Street Journal piece, they had Kevin McCarthy saying, yeah, but Kevin McCarthy previously said about the exact same meeting that Biden seemed completely fine. He now, apparently, for this debunked Wall Street Journal piece, has allegedly changed his mind, even though he's not actually come public and said, yeah, that's what I said. It's all, well, you know, after X meeting, Kevin McCarthy told other people that something was wrong with Biden. Maybe. We don't have proof of that. What we do know is that Kevin McCarthy himself has said in that meeting that he had with Biden, Biden was completely fine. So think of the theme here, both when it comes to the cognitive stuff and the political stuff. When you look at the people that are used to be around Trump, John Bolton, Rex Tillerson, Cassidy Hutchinson, right? At high level, low level, cabinet staffers, aides, whatever. They are the ones that come out and go, this guy should not have the keys to the car. This guy is not with it. He's not competent. He can't do it. He should be nowhere near any of this. Those are people who were around Donald Trump. And then on the other hand, you have no one that works or worked with Biden with any of this stuff. None of it. You hear in corporate media, oh, Biden froze and he wandered off. And not a single person around Biden has come forward and said, on the record or off the record, hey, this is what's going on. We gotta, put an earpiece in his ear, and we've got to give him a diaper, and we've got to have signs with color. He's using crayon now when he writes his executive order. That doesn't matter, right? I mean, we're being hypothetical here. Not a single whistleblower who has said any of this stuff is true. Now, you could react to this if you wanted to defend those who say something's wrong with Biden. You could say, you know what, David? It might just be that Democrats are much more authoritarian in threatening whistleblowers or leakers, and they've got it all tamped down so tight that you can make that argument. But when there have been things going on inside White Houses, disagreement about some major thing. Oh, there's people inside George W. Bush's White House. They're completely opposed to what Bush is doing in Iraq, and they're circulating a letter. It leaks. It always leaks. You would have to believe that supposedly demented Biden has put in place an environment so strict and functionally strict that everybody who would love to blow the whistle and go, listen, he doesn't know what day it is. He thought it was Saturday. We had to tell him, no, sir, it's Monday. You got to work or whatever. You would have to believe that they've done something no other administration has been able to do in terms of limiting, restricting, and preventing leakers and whistleblowers. Or you just have to believe the stuff isn't happening because we're not hearing about it from a single person with direct knowledge. I lean on the simplest explanation. That's where I am, which is it's not coming out of the White House because it's not actually what's going on. And the people who used to be and spend time around Trump are saying something is really weird about what's going on with this guy. And if you want to see another example of that, an ironic example, we're going to talk about that next. In the middle of demanding that Joe Biden be cognitively tested, the failed former president, convicted felon, and civilly liable sexual assaulter Donald Trump got the name of his own doctor wrong who gave him his cognitive test. The jokes write themselves, my friends. Donald Trump gave a completely ridiculous, glitchy, swollen speech in Detroit, Michigan for Turning Point Action. Reports are that most of the people there have no connection to Detroit at all. They were flown in by Turning Point USA, or some people know it as Toilet Paper USA. Here is Donald Trump defiantly demanding that Joe Biden be tested while referring to his own doctor, Ronnie Jackson, as Dr. Ronnie Johnson. He forgot the name of the guy who gave him his cognitive test, which supposedly proves how great his memory is, while demanding Biden be tested. You can't write anything better than this.
He doesn't even know what the word inflation means. I don't think if you gave him a quiz, I think he should take a cognitive test like I did. I took a cognitive test
Right.
and I aced it. Dr. Ronnie Johnson.
Uh-oh.
Does everyone know Ronnie Johnson, congressman from Texas? He was the White House doctor. And he said I was the healthiest president he feels in history. So I liked him very much immediately. In fact, he said if I didn't eat junk food, I would live to 200. That's what he said. But I said, Ronnie, should I take a test? He said, well, you know, it's Walter Reed. It's sort of a public hospital. If you don't do well, they're going to find out about it.
So anyway, the doctor's name is Ronnie Jackson. You know, I was thinking, how reasonable is it to forget the name of your own doctor? How reasonable is it to forget the name of your own doctor who traveled with you on Air Force One every single trip? How reasonable is it to forget the name of your own doctor who gave you arguably the most publicized dementia test maybe in the history of American politics, which you talk about weekly whenever you're given the opportunity? I remember the name of every single doctor I've had sequentially, even going back to my pediatrician in Argentina, just because my family has talked about the guy's name. And then I remember my doctor when I moved to the United States, Dr. Schwab, and so on and so forth. How on earth do you forget the name of the guy who was just your doctor a few years ago and who you were inextricably tied with in one of the biggest media stories of the end of your presidency, which is that you passed a dementia test supposedly with flying colors? And he goes, yeah, my doctor, Ronnie Johnson. But who's that? That is simply not the name of the guy. So you judge the irony as you will, demanding Biden be tested while forgetting the name of the doctor that gave him his cognitive test. But it didn't get any better as this speech continued in Detroit, Michigan. Trump glitching, twitching, and then white flagging and just pointing to Mike Pillow in the crowd. Something is wrong with this guy. He is unwell.
And in particular, and remember this. Oh, wait a minute. Mike Lindell, please stand up.
And in particular, remember that. No, Mike Lindell, please stand up. Not normal. Okay? Not normal. And then when he was able to get the words out, the rants made just as little sense as at any recent rally. Here is Trump with another totally deranged rant, this one about tanks and, I guess, electric batteries.
They want to make them now electric so that when you go into enemy territory and you obliterate the enemy and you knock down and those tanks are firing, you do it in a environmentally friendly way. The problem with the Army tanks, like cars and like trucks, the problem is that you would have to bring a battery pack along. You're going to pull it like a little wagon, like a...
It's almost like Trump doesn't realize internal combustion engine vehicles also have batteries. They're just smaller and are responsible for fewer things, but the batteries are there anyway.
Child pulls a wagon. So they want to build a Army tank, but the battery is very big and very heavy, much heavier than a thing called diesel, much heavier than diesel fuel. And you got to see this tank. It's like a wagon, and there's a big thing that is pulling in the back. And even with that, it doesn't go far, and lots of bad things happen, like it doesn't take cold weather very well, and it's really bad in heat.
Yeah. Of course, many advantages to electric tanks, as you can imagine, extraordinarily quiet and ability to have heat or air conditioning without running a loud motor, and so many different advantages. But anyway, so another deranged rant from Trump. And then Trump also said he would be taking questions, and then he just left. He didn't take any questions, which is becoming a theme. Trump holds press conferences and then just leaves without taking a single question like he did last week. And here is Trump announcing he will be taking questions. Then you'll see him shuffling off the stage alongside, I believe it's Charlie Kirk.
You are. At the end of the speech, I'll be taking some questions. So this is different than Joe Biden. He doesn't take any questions.
All right. And there goes there goes Trump without taking a single question from the crowd. So the decline is clear and it is speeding up. And in the meantime, a desperate Trump campaign to show how much Black Americans love Trump staged an event at a, quote, black church. The only problem was just about everybody there was white. Oh, we're going to talk about that next. Donald Trump attempted to fill a black church with people to give a bizarre speech. They are, of course, lying about the size of the crowd, claiming there were 8,000 people there. I'm no crowd size estimation expert, but we're going to show you some images, and I think you will very quickly agree there are not 8,000 people there. And in the meantime, most of the people there were white, and apparently not even from Detroit. Is it every single time that this is going to be happening now? So we start with Kellyanne Conway on Fox News saying Trump spoke to 8,000 people at a black church.
Biden's not doing anything like that. Look at the contrast of just this weekend. You got Donald Trump in Detroit talking to 8,000 people, and then at a black church, of course. By the way, he did.
What? What is she talking about? Now, here's video from the church. And as you can see, here's Ben Carson, who's just an electric speaker. Ben Carson, there's empty seats everywhere. And you can very, very, very much see there's a few hundred people there. It's just a few hundred people. That's it. There's nothing, that's all it is. Here is video of Trump entering, and you will see another pan of the crowd. And notice, by the way, that not only is the crowd not very big, the crowd also seems very white at a supposed black church. So we got a few black folks here near up front on the stage with Trump. And then just an overwhelmingly white crowd. And we even have an image here of the crowd that we will show you. And as you can see, and again, the reason we're talking about this, I don't do identity politics, but they are doing it by saying we filled a black church with black people. And as you can see here, it is white folks as far as the eye can see. Trump also told some of his classic lies that he likes to tell crowds of supposedly black people, even though the crowd is all white. I mean, it's layer upon layer of this nonsense. Trump claiming that black unemployment was never lower than under his watch.
But we achieved the lowest.
And by the way, I apologize for the audio. Clearly, Antifa must have been running audio.
But we achieved the lowest African American unemployment rate and the lowest African American poverty rate ever recorded.
Of course, that may have been true until Joe Biden. We have seen President Joe Biden actually preside over the lowest black unemployment rate ever recorded, not Trump, and also the greatest acceleration of wages relative to inflation for black folks dating back a very, very, very long time. So the Detroit trip was not a good one. Trump goes to a black church and says there were 8,000 black folks there. There were a few hundred, mostly white folks there. Then he goes and gives a speech to people flown in by Turning Point, glitches really badly, and demands Biden be cognitively tested while forgetting the name of the doctor that gave him his own cognitive test. So a tough weekend in Michigan for Trump, where he is hoping for massive dumps of votes soon. I don't know that he's necessarily going to get them, but we're going to keep an eye on it. And then we will take a very quick break, hear from a sponsor or two. Make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel at youtube.com/The David Pakman Show. If you value what we do at The David Pakman Show, remember to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show, where you can get access to behind the scenes videos, the daily bonus show, the commercial-free daily show. You can support the show for as little as $2 a month. Check it out at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. The viral sensations, the Paul brothers, Jake Paul and Logan Paul, are sort of getting wrapped up in MAGA Trumpism lately. Logan Paul recently interviewed Donald Trump. And I think that this is interesting, not because you necessarily should know who Logan Paul is or even follow him. I know that there's people in my audience who won't know who he is and won't follow him. But what is very interesting about this interview is that this was really a simple interview. And these are not individuals who are primarily engaged in politics. And Trump still couldn't answer any questions in any kind of direct sense. This little montage that they published includes the very basic question, have you ever been in a fist fight? And Trump doesn't even answer that. You know, it's like if someone goes, David, have you ever been in a fist fight? I go, you know, I was in one fight in third grade where there were punches thrown. But beyond that, every little scuffle I've been in was not a fist fight. And I try to use words to avoid fist fights, or, you know, like it'd be super simple. And Trump just can't answer any question.
You ever been in a fist fight, Mr. President?
Probably not.
David, you ever been to Japan? Probably not. Probably not.
I've been like little Jews, nothing like. Thank you very much for you guys.
Is this your mugshot?
Yeah, can you go back?
All right. So anyway, then they exchange T-shirts with mugshots on them or something like that. Logan Paul asks Trump, what about the American dream? What's the state of the American dream? What do you say to people who, by the way, I'm making the question much more elaborate. What do you say to people who question the American dream? Does it exist? And Trump just goes, oh, you got to vote Trump.
What would you say to them? Kids who want to pursue their own version of the American dream and try to achieve their wildest dreams and make it all come true?
I would say very simply, honestly, vote for Trump. Because with Biden, you're never going to do it. This country's going to hell. Vote for Trump. You know, we're doing great with youth. We're doing great with African Americans, with
the African
Hispanic Americans through the roof, both of those groups, with women, with men, and with.
He's doing well with women, men, old folks, young folks, white folks, black folks. It seems like everybody but Jews is voting for Trump, which Trump attacks Jews
Young
over.
people were doing very well, but I say vote for Trump. If you don't have the right guy in the lead, the country's not going to, you know, if the country doesn't do well, it's much harder to do even what you do. Okay?
Right.
Even what you do. So that would be a simple message. I really mean.
Yeah. Not exactly the deep understanding of the American dream and factors that can limit our ability to live life's full potential and realize self-determination. Not exactly that when you go, oh, just vote Trump. I've got a solution for that. Super easy. Now, there were also much more specific questions, like, for example, about UFOs. Swing and a miss. No real answer here either.
I want to talk to you about aliens.
Yeah.
UFOs, UAPs.
I know.
The disclosure we've seen in Congress recently. It's confusing and upsetting a lot of Americans because something's going on.
A lot of people are really confused and upset. That's genius. What a framing. What a framing for the people are confused. Who's upset? I'm sorry. I know that I have people from the UFO community to the extent it exists, but framing that a lot of people are confused and upset. Oh my goodness.
Something happening. There are unidentified aerial phenomena in the sky. We don't know what they are. Do you?
So it's such a question I do get a lot, and it's such an interesting question. I've met with pilots that look just like you, actually. Okay, they have more of a crew cut.
Right.
Okay, they look like him, and they look like you. Some of them look like you, a little fatter. But these are perfect people, okay? And they're not
crazy,
conspiratorial. They're not crazy, and they tell me stories that they've seen things that you wouldn't believe. These are not people that you would say, gee,
no way.
Oh, that's
no
okay.
Way. President of the United States.
But
I said,
who is it? That's Joe Biden wanting to do an interview. So I met with pilots like beautiful Tom Cruise, but taller.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Handsome, perfect people. Sir, there was something there that was round in form and going like 4 times faster than my super jet fighter plane. And
so these are basically Trump references to some of the claims made by, honestly, I don't even remember the name of the guy. I think it's David something. David Grush. These are similar to the things David Grush has said others told him. But it's like, can't Trump just give a straighter answer? And I'm not saying Trump just tell us, well, I personally saw 2 alien bodies. I don't think he did. And I don't think that's what I'm expecting. But something that makes some semblance of sense. Then one other funny part to this interview, Trump kind of starts interviewing Logan Paul and asking about how YouTube works. And it's just kind of funny because he's completely clueless. And I know that it's so when we think about the president of the United States or a former president, you assume it's someone who is explained to a lot of the major things in culture and society, like, for example, the online content and streaming space. But then you go, oh, he's kind of just like, an 80-year-old grandpa who doesn't really know what's going on. And that really comes through here.
Excuse me, did you guys start like separately?
Me and Jake?
Yes.
Nah, together.
Oh, you started together?
Together on YouTube.
And did you branch out, each have your own thing?
Well, eventually, because I went to college. Jake went.
This is like when people come up to me and they go, so are you still doing that radio show? And I'm like, well, it's mostly online now. It's a podcast. You go, oh, and like, what's your full-time thing? I'm like, oh, it's the show. The show is my full-time thing. We have like employees and, they go, oh, you can support yourself on that? I'm like, yeah, you can do it. You can definitely do it.
Still in high school. He ended up dropping out. I finished my first year.
It's an amazing 2 stories, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Who makes more money?
It depends on the year. It depends if Jake has fights.
and it depends on when this sells, right?
Yeah. I think.
Is that your new drink? Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
If you make it, I like it.
Oh, thank you,
Mr.
President.
No, it's got to be good. It's got to be, look, something's propelling him to fight world champions to a draw, right?
Yeah. We actually made this American
that's
Prime
beautiful.
special
Wow.
for this episode. It's a hydration.
So anyway, they try to give Trump some kind of, I don't even know what the drink is that Jake Paul and Logan Paul sell. I don't know if it's an energy drink or what it is. Anyway, so then they get off of that, but Trump kind of struggling to understand like YouTube and stuff like that. So a fascinating interview because this is not someone who spends his time mostly interviewing elected officials. It's not someone with a single tough or gotcha question. And Trump still kind of like provides zero value of any kind. He looks sort of confused. And hilariously, he asked later to extend the interview by 20 minutes because he was having such a great time. The reason you're having a great time is you're being asked nothing serious and not held to an answer on anything and just saying whatever you want about anything. So this is like the perfect interview for Donald Trump. He absolutely loves it. A Democratic Congresswoman, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she laughed at the concept of a 2-tier justice system where Democrats and Republicans are treated differently. She was interviewed by CNN's Manu Raju after the conviction of Hunter Biden. And she gave a perfect summary of how the Democratic Party genuinely supports the rule of law and due process. The MAGA extremists do not. And it should be very clear looking at the reactions to Trump's conviction and the reactions to Hunter Biden's conviction. This is short, but it's a worthy clip. Take a listen.
Essentially confirms that the justice system works fairly and treats both sides equally.
What would Republicans point to as a 2-tiered system of justice when the president's son was just convicted of a crime? I mean, if anything, this shows the difference that Democrats are willing to accept when our justice system works as functioned and as designed. We're not here contesting the results. We're not here trying to defund the FBI or the Department of Justice because we don't like the outcome of a given trial. We respect the judicial process.
And of course, there's people in the comments to this video saying, oh, but AOC is trying to defund the police. She wants the police defunded. AOC has not asked for police to be defunded, and Democrats at the federal level have not asked for police to be defunded. And police have not been defunded. And for the most part, police budgets continue to increase sort of proportionally to inflation as one would expect. Remember also the difference between what Biden recently said about his son's conviction and what we would expect from Trump and what Trump has been saying about his own convictions, where President Joe Biden said after the conviction, quote, "As I said last week, I am the president, but I'm also a dad. Jill and I love our son, and we are so proud of the man he is today. So many families have had loved ones battle addiction, understand the feeling of pride seeing someone you love come out the other side and be so strong and resilient in recovery. As I also said last week, I will accept the outcome of this case and will continue to respect the judicial process as Hunter continues an appeal and points out Hunter has his love and support. Has Trump ever said, I will respect any outcome he doesn't like? He won electorally in 2016, but doesn't accept the popular vote results and believe he won those as well, even though Hillary did. Trump lost the popular and electoral votes in 2020. He doesn't accept that. Trump doesn't accept the results of his defamation civil suit from E. Jean Carroll. That he doesn't accept. He doesn't accept the 34 guilty counts that he was convicted of recently. He doesn't accept the indictments that are for the forthcoming 2 or 3 criminal trials, depending on how it all goes. I can never imagine Trump just accepting an outcome that he doesn't like without some caveat. So let me explain to you what these Republicans are now saying with regard to, well, Biden's DOJ prosecuted and got his own son convicted. That undercuts the claims of a 2-tier justice system that benefits Democrats. What about Bob Menendez, Democratic senator, being indicted? What about Henry Cuellar? What about the Cori Bush investigation? The way they are now undercutting it is, at first it was they're not going after Democrats, they're only going after Republicans. Well, that talking point is gone. The next talking point is they went after Hunter Biden on something relatively small, or they're not going to give him any prison time, even though almost no one gets prison time for what Hunter Biden got convicted of. And so it's all a ruse. It's to create the veneer of a bipartisan Justice Department, when in reality, the point here is let's get Trump. But of course, Trump also almost certainly isn't going to go to prison for his 34 felony convictions. So then they'll move to the next thing. Well, this case was just to set up in the country's mind that it's okay to say Trump's guilty. So when they pull a jury pool for the next trial, you'll be pulling from a pool that all is willing to say, yes, we convict Trump. They're going to come up with something, but as AOC points out, they've already predetermined the perspective, which is in some way, either at the surface or below the surface. This is a system that is Joe Biden going after his political enemies and Democrats getting off scot-free. Doesn't seem like a Democrat got off scot-free. Well, let me tell you why it actually is an example of that. Doesn't matter what facts you present. They will move the goalposts as many times as they need to in order to get to the starting point, which is they're bad, we're good, we're the victims, they're the perpetrators. We have a fantastic bonus show for you today. This may be the end of our time together today, if you aren't a member and you don't have access to the bonus show. But if you do, we will be discussing President Joe Biden's $30 million fundraiser featuring Barack Obama, George Clooney, I believe Julia Roberts was there. Obama. That guy. We will also talk about the House passing a bill to automatically register young men for the draft. Wait a second. Don't we already have selective service? What is this about? We will discuss it. And we will also talk about how the fast food industry is claiming that the California minimum wage law is costing them jobs. Now, you might say, David, you've reported on this. When I previously talked about the California minimum wage for fast food workers, the data I found said it's not costing any jobs. Well, the reason that the fast food industry is saying they are being cost jobs is because the numbers are fake. They're just straight up fake numbers. All of those stories and more on today's bonus show. Find it at joinpacman.com, and then I'll be back tomorrow. Thanks a lot for watching today's show. I just want to take a second to tell you about today's sponsors. The foodies in my audience should check this out. Our sponsor, Cook Unity, is a unique service that connects you with some of the best chefs in the country. Cook Unity is a collective of award-winning chefs who handcraft spectacular dishes in their local micro kitchens to arrive at your doorstep every week, always fresh and never frozen. They have hundreds of dishes to choose from. No cooking required. You heat it up and it is ready to eat. Go to cookunity.com/Pacman and use the code Pacman before checkout for 50% off your first week.